New York. A foggy morning in the early 2000s. Inside a windowless office at FBI headquarters, pale fluorescent lights cast a cold glow on a thick sealed file folder. A security officer walks in and places it on a steel gray desk. A handwritten title is stamped boldly on the front page, Wu-Tang Clan. Not the name of a gang, not the name of a notorious crime syndicate, but a rap group. Yet to the FBI at the time, Wu-Tang Clan was more than just a music collective. They believed it was a front for an underground organization operating like a modern-day mafia. For years, federal agents had secretly investigated, monitored, and gathered evidence. And they used the same powerful tool once deployed against the Italian mob, the RICO Act. Wu-Tang Clan was born in 1992 in Staten Island, New York. The group consisted of 9 core members, each a unique piece of the puzzle, from RZA, the genius producer, to Ghostface Killer, the seasoned lyrical veteran, and Method Man, who would later make waves in film and television. From the moment they debuted, Wu-Tang made a massive impact with their cold, gritty, yet deeply thoughtful rap style, like whispers from the heart of the streets. Their debut album, Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers, quickly became a classic, marking the beginning of a new era in American hip-hop. But that very success also brought attention. Unlike mainstream groups that sang about love or the good life, Wu-Tang rapped about guns, drugs, blood, and betrayal. They didn't sugarcoat reality. They pulled listeners into the real world, where street law ruled and loyalty was the only thing keeping you alive. To the FBI, this wasn't just music. It was a confession set to a beat. Cash rules everything around me, CREAM. Get the money. In later declassified documents, the FBI described Wu-Tang Clan as a network, a tightly knit organization with clearly defined roles, allegedly linked to various local criminal groups. They didn't just perform together, they traveled together, invested money together, and, according to some sources, shared the same enemies that needed to be dealt with. One anonymous source once gave a chilling statement: Wu-Tang doesn't just rap about violence, they live it. The FBI suspected Wu-Tang of involvement in activities such as interstate drug trafficking, stretching from Ohio and Pennsylvania to New York, illegal weapons transactions, acts of revenge and retaliation against disloyal dealers. But suspicions are one thing, evidence is another. A taped conversation from a case in Ohio, where a drug dealer was shot dead, was included in the file. Police suspected someone associated with Wu-Tang was involved. A confidential witness claimed he got killed for taking product and not paying up. Someone made the call, I heard Wu ordered it. Still, that testimony was never verified. No one in Wu-Tang was arrested, no charges were filed. The FBI kept watching. And then something curious happened. Wu-Tang's lyrics were introduced as potential evidence. Lines from their songs were pulled out, printed, and analyzed word by word, like forensic linguists dissecting the writings of a suspect. One example: in Bring the Ruckus, they rap, I'm rugged and raw, I'll shut down your block like the National Guard. The FBI annotated, potential incitement to violence and disruption of public order. But the real question is, can a group of artists be labeled a criminal organization just because their lyrics are too real, too raw, too close to life? Or is this part of a longer history of cultural bias against hip-hop, where black artists are seen as potential criminals simply for telling their truth? The answer might be more complicated than you think. If you think the FBI was simply investigating Wu-Tang Clan as celebrities with complicated lives, think again. They didn't stop at the lyrics. They didn't just analyze lifestyle or artistic evolution. They opened a case file that followed the blueprint of a mafia investigation, with RICO. RICO stands for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, a law passed by the US Congress in 1970, originally designed to target the Italian mafia. Why is it significant? Because RICO allows authorities to prosecute an entire organization, not just individual members. That means, if one person in the group commits a crime with intent, and the others knowingly assist or are involved, the whole organization can be prosecuted. By the late 90s, as Wu-Tang's fame spread across America, a team of agents from the FBI's Organized Crime Unit opened a RICO case targeting them. The primary subjects of the file included core members of Wu-Tang Clan associates, bodyguards, financial backers, and even affiliated artists, incidents connected to Ohio, New York, and Philadelphia, cities tied to suspicious activities. According to later declassified materials, the FBI believed Wu-Tang was a central node in a complex network involving interstate drug trafficking, illegal arms transport, unsolved homicides, money laundering through entertainment companies and music projects. The FBI tracked at least 3 cases suspected to be linked to Wu-Tang. One of them was a murder in Ohio, where a dealer was shot dead following a dispute over product and money. A protected witness in that case claimed someone in Wu-Tang was behind it. They wanted to send a message. The FBI didn't sit idle. They gathered intel from bank records, phone logs, suspicious financial transactions, performances in known crime hotspots, and, notably, song lyrics. One of the FBI's more unusual strategies was treating lyrics as potential evidence. They pulled lines from rap tracks, marked those depicting criminal behavior, and brought in language experts to dissect them. Was this a true confession, or just artistic expression? In Protect Your Neck, there's a line, "I'm gonna give it to you with no trivia, raw, like cocaine straight from Bolivia." Some investigators interpreted this as a direct reference to a cocaine trafficking route from South America to the US, despite no concrete proof. From 1999 to early 2003, the FBI kept Wu-Tang under close surveillance. At one point, they even proposed installing wiretaps in the group's recording studio. But the court rejected the request. They tracked assets registered under Wu-Tang-related companies. They monitored tour dates to see if illicit activity occurred on the road. They mapped out relationships between group members and individuals outside the entertainment industry, all in an effort to answer one question: was this a rap group or a front?
We're not the mafia. We're music. But we come from a place where violence is an everyday thing, and sometimes music is just a way to survive.
Despite years of surveillance, the FBI never filed any RICO charges against Wu-Tang Clan. No members were arrested for organized crime. No trial ever took place. All allegations faded into silence, either due to lack of evidence or because they held no legal weight. Wu-Tang kept performing. They even became global cultural icons. And the FBI, they closed the file. Quietly. Was it a case of the right suspects at the wrong time? Or just a misunderstanding between two worlds? One that speaks in beats and lyrics, and another that listens with suspicion. RICO is a double-edged sword. It once brought down the mafia. But with Wu-Tang, it was nothing more than a passing breeze. Ohio, a night in June 1999. On a quiet street in the city of Steubenville, more than 600 kilometers from New York, gunshots shattered the silence. A man collapsed in a pool of blood. He was a local drug dealer with ties to gangs across both Ohio and New York. The incident immediately drew the attention of local police. What they didn't expect was the murder would spark interest from the FBI and lead to a covert investigation into one of the world's most famous music groups, Wu-Tang Clan. The victim was Jerome "Boom" Estrella, 26 years old, previously arrested for drug possession and distribution. In the underground scene, Boom was a known name, aggressive, cunning, and street smart. He frequently traveled between Steubenville and Brooklyn, where he was rumored to have shady connections with some underground artists, including individuals believed to be linked to Wu-Tang. When Boom was shot, he was found with a locked phone, $6,000 in cash, several packets of drugs yet to be distributed, no security cameras, no direct witnesses, only a vague statement from a woman living nearby. "I heard yelling. Someone said, 'You messed with the wrong people.' Then there were gunshots." During the investigation, police discovered that Boom had previously done business with a man named Dennis P. Mays, a low-level figure in the entertainment scene who had been seen accompanying Wu-Tang members at smaller events in Ohio. Police questioned Mays. That's when a detail made the FBI sit up. Mays claimed that Boom had once held onto some product and money belonging to someone in Wu-Tang, and had since drawn a lot of unwanted attention. When asked to name who in Wu-Tang was involved, Mays simply shook his head. "I'm not saying names. Those guys don't play around. Who threatened Boom?" "We call him Ghost, but "You really should leave this alone." Though the testimony wasn't strong enough for prosecution, the FBI began expanding their investigation. They suspected that at least one individual within Wu-Tang, or from their extended circle, might have been involved in Boom's death. Not necessarily as the shooter, but possibly as the one who gave the order, or sanctioned the retaliation. The Ohio incident was flagged by the FBI as a turning point. From that moment on, they cross-referenced Wu-Tang's tour schedule in the Midwest at the time, investigated the financial records of group members during the month of the murder, pulled hotel bookings, car rentals, and phone call logs, tracked down low-level affiliates who often traveled with the group. The result? Several backstage crew members from Wu-Tang were confirmed to be in Ohio the same week the murder occurred. But all had either solid alibis, or the evidence simply wasn't enough to press charges. An internal FBI report stated, while direct involvement of Wu-Tang Clan in the homicide remains unverified, multiple indicators suggest that the group or its affiliates exert influence over local criminal networks. No one from Wu-Tang was arrested in connection with the case. No charges were filed, no trial ever took place. In a later interview, when asked about the allegations of involvement in street retaliation, Ghostface Killer responded, "You'll think just 'cause we rap about violence, we live in it. We write what we see. Doesn't mean we do it." RZA was more blunt. If someone did something wrong, that's on them as an individual. Don't drag Wu-Tang into it. Host, voice deepens. The murder of Boom Estrella remains unsolved to this day. The case has been quietly closed. The FBI never filed formal charges, but Wu-Tang's name remained on a potential surveillance list until at least 2006, according to a leaked report. The death of Boom Estrella, along with several other incidents loosely connected to Wu-Tang, became one of the quieter threads in a multi-year investigation. The question is, was it all just coincidence? Or did Wu-Tang once stand dangerously close to the edge, where music meets crime? What still lurks in the shadows? Have you ever wondered? If a lyric could land someone in prison? In the world of hip-hop, where artists often speak of guns, drugs, and murder as part of everyday life, this isn't just a rhetorical question, it's reality. And in the late 90s and early 2000s, Wu-Tang Clan became one of the first music groups to have their lyrics scrutinized by the FBI as if they were classified intel. Starting in 1998, when allegations around Wu-Tang began to surface, the FBI formed a dedicated task force to monitor the group's lyrics. They extracted lines from over 50 songs, including hits like CREAM, Cash Rules Everything Around Me, Protect Your Neck, Wu Gambinos, Bring the Ruckus. Then they analyzed the lyrics, the way one might examine a ransom note or a written confession. One internal FBI memo stated clearly, the songs contain descriptions of violent acts, narcotics trafficking, internal retaliation, and coded language potentially tied to criminal activity. This raised a question that would haunt both law enforcement and the music industry for years. If a song tells a story about murder, is it a confession? If a lyric references drug dealing, does that mean the artist actually did it? To the FBI, especially in the early days of hip-hop's explosive growth, it wasn't a risk they were willing to take. So they began categorizing lyrics based on threat level, creating what was essentially a criminal threat rating system for rap music, a kind of scorecard of potential guilt built on verses. Wu-Tang's case never led to prosecution, but it marked the start of a dangerous precedent, using lyrics as evidence in criminal trials. A few years later, several rappers would find themselves in court, with their own songs used against them. For example, New Orleans rapper Mac was sentenced to life in prison. His track Murder, Murder, Kill, Kill was presented as part of the prosecution's argument. In California, Drakeo the Ruler faced charges based on a song allegedly planning a murder, despite not being at the scene. Back to Wu-Tang, though they were never brought to trial, documents reveal the FBI had considered presenting specific lyrics as supporting material in a potential RICO case. And that leads to a much bigger question. When art is treated as confession, what happens to creative freedom? Many argue this is the politicization of music, a reflection of cultural fear, particularly toward black culture and street narratives. Wu-Tang once said, We rap about violence because that's where we came from. If we didn't rap, we'd stay silent and be buried. Wu-Tang Clan, like many other hip-hop artists, used music to reflect reality. But telling a story is not the same as participating in it. They pulled inspiration from kung fu films, street life, fiction, friends, and turned it into musical legend. They spoke of blades, bullets, and bills as a way to release it. But the FBI didn't see it that way. They saw encrypted truth, confessions wrapped in beats. And that's why for years, the FBI tried to crack what they called the Wu-Tang Code. But what they never found was proof. Lyrics can be dangerous, but they can also be salvation. A verse can put someone behind bars, or save someone from a life of violence. Wu-Tang Clan was never arrested, but at one point they came dangerously close to being imprisoned, by their own words. First, let's talk about the name, Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang was inspired by a Hong Kong martial arts film, specifically the 1983 movie Shaolin and Wu-Tang. In the film, two rival martial arts schools face off, but the group didn't just borrow the name because it sounded cool. They embraced the spirit of martial arts as a model for how they operated. Wu-Tang called themselves a clan, a tribe, a large family. Within that, RZA was known as the abbot. The spiritual leader, GZA, was the genius, the strategic brain. Other members were warriors, each with their own name and style. They divided up turf, Staten Island, Brooklyn, the Bronx. And they didn't rap for themselves. They rapped like they were on a mission. Many journalists called Wu-Tang the first music group structured like a criminal syndicate. But Wu-Tang wasn't just music. From the very beginning, they had a blueprint to expand their influence across industries, launching a clothing line, creating their own music production company, releasing comic books, investing in films, video games, and documentaries, and most importantly, training a new wave of artists. They called this network the Wu-Tang Killer Bees, young rappers who weren't official members but operated under the Wu-Tang banner. Nearly 100 people were part of this network, much like a network of soldiers under a mafia family. The FBI took note. The existence of the Wu-Tang Killer Bees suggests a clear hierarchical structure, resembling the Capo regime system in the Italian mafia. RZA is the brain, GZA is the strategist, Method Man is the face, Ghostface is the right hand. Each has a domain, like capos in a syndicate. Another reason for FBI suspicion, Wu-Tang used language and symbols that mirrored those of underground organizations. They had their own logo, the bat-shaped W, displayed everywhere from album covers to clothing, used aliases instead of real names, spoke in code, slang, and metaphors during interviews, and rarely discussed internal affairs. A former member of the Killer Bees once revealed, there was an unspoken rule: Wu business stays in Wu. This mirrored the Omerta, the code of silence, long associated with the Italian mafia, which the FBI was trained to look for. From a local rap crew, Wu-Tang grew into a national, and eventually global, movement. They expanded their presence into cities with high criminal activity, including Ohio, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New Jersey. The FBI discovered that some associates traveling with the group maintained regular contact with individuals suspected of being connected to drug operations. One report stated, "It is unclear if Wu-Tang directly runs illicit activity, but they certainly enable and provide cover for those who do." While there was never enough evidence for charges, the group's structure, scale, and influence led the FBI to classify Wu-Tang as a high-impact entity, an organization with the potential for deep social reach. Wu-Tang said they were artists, kids from the streets who used music to escape poverty and violence. The FBI said they were an organization with hierarchy, leadership, strategy, and reach far beyond what you'd expect from a typical music group. So where does the truth lie? Maybe in both. Wu-Tang is a cultural symbol, but they also became a case study in the blurry lines between art and surveillance, freedom and bias, myth and reality. Since the late 1990s, the FBI poured manpower, resources, and years of surveillance into monitoring Wu-Tang Clan. They analyzed over 50 songs, tracked tour schedules, financial transactions, and personal phone calls. recorded indirect conversations, investigated the Wu-Tang Killer Bees network, tried to link the group to cases involving drugs, guns, and murder. Some agents even proposed RICO indictments, invoking the powerful anti-organized crime law. But there was one major problem: nothing held up. Every link had a flaw. Witnesses were vague testimonies, couldn't be verified. No clear legal connection between Wu-Tang members and criminal acts. And most importantly, not a single member was arrested for organized crime. No trial, no indictments. Within the FBI, Wu-Tang eventually earned an unofficial nickname, the Untouchables. Not because they were invisible, but because they were too smart to get caught. All of the group's business activities were legit on paper. Money moved through music companies, investment ventures, and creative products. Their associates, even those with criminal records, never left clear evidence, and the core members themselves were never charged with any serious crime. One retired agent later said, "We knew something was there. But knowing isn't enough. You have to prove it." So what is Wu-Tang really? A group of artists from the projects using music to escape poverty? Or a highly intelligent, tightly run clan, organized, strategic, and expert at staying under the radar? The truth may never be fully clear. Maybe both things are true. Or maybe it was all just a product of fear, a government's reaction to a culture it couldn't understand and couldn't control. When the Wu-Tang case was finally closed, many agents were frustrated. They had hoped to expose a syndicate as notorious as the mafia, but what they found was a complex network of artists, with symbols, language, and a blurred line between reality and performance, art and life. Wu-Tang Clan didn't just survive the FBI investigation, they became legend. A hip-hop group with an aura of mystery, cultural power, and an unanswered question. If the FBI once thought they were the mafia, maybe, just maybe, they weren't entirely wrong. When the FBI closed the case in 2006, Wu-Tang didn't just walk free, they entered a new chapter, a chapter of recognition. In 2013, they released a one-of-a-kind album, Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, with only a single physical copy in existence, sold for over $2 million. Wu-Tang was honored at numerous cultural events, and their name was added to American music history textbooks. Their legacy spread through art, t-shirts, murals, and even a full television series on Hulu, chronicling the rise of a group once suspected of being a criminal organization. From being investigated as potential mafia, Wu-Tang became a part of pop culture history. RZA, the mastermind behind Wu-Tang, is now a film producer, conductor, director, and guest lecturer at prestigious universities. He's spoken at Harvard about the musical theory of hip-hop and strategic creative thinking. Method Man, once under FBI scrutiny for suspicious financial ties, is now an award-winning actor, starring in major television series and winning an Emmy. Ghostface Killer launched his own liquor brand. GZA teaches high school students about astronomy through hip-hop. The names that once appeared in FBI case files are now professors, international artists, and cultural icons. Many famous rap groups have come and gone. But Wu-Tang, they're different. Because they were never just music, they were a philosophy, a brand, a cultural universe. They fused Eastern philosophy, Kung Fu, the streets, and American society into a unique identity. They were self-organized, self-produced, and independent from major labels, a rare feat in the 1990s. They inspired thousands of young artists, both inside and beyond the world of rap. When people talk about Wu-Tang, they don't just say, they had great lyrics. They say, they changed the way we look at art. Wu-Tang's greatest legacy isn't their best-selling albums. It's their ability to challenge stereotypes. They are living proof that you can come from the bottom, be treated like a suspect, be watched, but if you're smart enough, creative enough, and persistent enough, you can become a legend. Wu-Tang helped the world understand that hip-hop isn't just music. It's the language of the forgotten, the voice of the voiceless. Today, Wu-Tang Clan still performs, still releases music, and still stands as an immortal icon. Their iconic W logo lives on hoodies, street murals, and in the very DNA of pop culture. Maybe the FBI was wrong, or maybe They were just too early in calling Wu-Tang an organized organization. Because yes, Wu-Tang was organized, but not to commit crimes. They were organized to survive, to fight, and to inspire an entire generation. The FBI didn't fear Wu-Tang Clan because they were dangerous. They feared Wu-Tang because they were influential. A rap group from Staten Island, speaking for those left behind by society, had the power to get national radio play, top the music charts, influence millions of young people across America, and spread a message. We have a voice, and we won't be silent. The government wasn't afraid of lyrics, they were afraid of unity through music, afraid of truth delivered on a beat. And when a message can't be controlled, they put it under surveillance. In this podcast series, we've seen Wu-Tang's music treated like a confession, members' finances monitored, phone calls tracked, lyrics dissected like classified documents, artists treated like criminals, simply for telling the truth about their lives. So what does that tell us? That freedom of speech isn't always as protected as we think. The story of Wu-Tang isn't just a failed investigation, it's a lesson in how society views art. When art comes from the streets, it's met with suspicion. When the storyteller isn't white, they're surveilled. When the story is too real, too raw, it's labeled a threat. And the scariest part, when a song can be brought into a courtroom, one day your story might be too. We've walked through the cold, fluorescent-lit offices of the FBI, read the closed files, the redacted recordings, heard the nameless testimonies and unsolved cases, and watched as a group, once suspects, became symbols. From suspicion to respect, from surveillance to a place in cultural history. Music has always been a space to say what couldn't be said aloud. But when even music is no longer free, we have to ask, is it still art, or something that needs permission to exist? Wu-Tang taught us, no one can control free thought, no one can kill creativity, and if you're strong enough, you can turn accusations into legend. Thank you for joining us throughout this journey, through music, investigations, politics, and the hidden corners of culture. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to share it, rate us 5 stars, and pass it along to someone who loves music as much as you do. We'll see you in the next series. Next time, we'll tell you the story of Tupac Shakur, artist, poet, icon, and suspect. The 1996 assassination remains unsolved, and at one point, the FBI assigned an entire task force to track his every move. Was it about music or politics? Love or vengeance? Stay tuned.